Welcome back to Decode the Hacks. Today we are investigating a critical security event that has triggered emergency updates across entire Apple ecosystem. We are tracking two zero-day vulnerabilities. These aren't theoretical bugs. They are weaponized exploits used in the wild, targeting specific individuals right now. From iPhone to Macs and even Chrome browsers, the attack surface is massive. In the next few minutes, I'm going to break down exactly how these hacks work, who is behind them, and what you need to do immediately to protect your devices. It started on December 12th, 2025. Apple suddenly released a wave of emergency security updates for every major platform: iOS, macOS, watchOS, and more. These advisories were brief but alarming. Apple confirmed that two WebKit vulnerabilities were being exploited in extremely sophisticated attacks against specific targeted individuals. This phrasing is key. When Apple says extremely sophisticated, they are usually signaling the work of mercenary spyware vendors, companies that sell hacking tools to governments. This wasn't a random cybercrime campaign. It was a surgical strike. To understand the scope, we need to look at the timeline. The issue first surfaced on December 5th when Google began coordinating a disclosure. On December 10th, Google Chrome quietly shipped a fix for a mysterious out-of-bounds memory bug. Then, just 2 days later, on December 12th, Apple dropped their updates. The timing wasn't a coincidence. We learned that one of the 0 days, CVE-2025-14174, affected a shared graphic library called Angle because both Chrome and Safari use this library to render graphics. A single vulnerability compromised both browsers simultaneously. Let's get technical. We are dealing with two distinct vulnerabilities here. On the left, we have CVE-2025-43529. This is a classic use after free bug in WebKit. Imagine a program clearing a piece of memory but forgetting to update its pointer. An attacker can then trick the browser into using that freed memory to run their own malicious code. On the right is CVE 2025-14174. This is the memory corruption flaw in the Angle graphics engine. It's an out-of-bound access vulnerability. Think of it like reading past the end of a book, except here, reading past the end of a data buffer lets an attacker crash the system or inject code. So, how does this actually happen? How does a line of code turn into a compromised iPhone? Let's look at the attack chain. It starts with delivery. In targeted espionage, this is often a link sent via secured messenger, SMS, or even email. Sometimes it's a watering hole attack where a legitimate website is compromised. The user clicks the link. That is the only interaction which is required. The moment the browser begins to load the page, the countdown starts. The page contains malicious web content, specifically crafted HTML or JavaScript designed to confuse the rendering engine. Here is where CVE 2025-14174 kicks in. As the Angle library tries to process the graphics on the page, it hits that memory corruption flaw which we discussed. Instead of the app crashing, the exploit manipulates the memory to execute arbitrary code. This happens in milliseconds. Suddenly, the attacker is running code inside your browser's rendering process. Now they have a foothold. While we don't have public details on the specific sandbox escape used here, historically, this is step one of a two-step dance. But the damage is already done. The attacker is inside the perimeter, and for the victim, the page might just look like it's loading slowly or nothing is happening at all. But silently, the malicious code is in execution. So who was in the crosshairs? Apple's advisory was very specific. They stated these attacks were directed at specific targeted individuals. This is not a dragnet. It's a sniper shot. In the world world of cyber espionage, this profile usually means high-value targets, journalists, diplomats, or even political figures. It is critical that we don't blame the victims here. You can have the best security practices in the world, but against a zero-day exploit like this one, traditional defenses often fail. The attackers didn't need the victim to make a mistake. They just needed a vulnerability that no one else knew existed. Who pulls the trigger on a weapon like this? While Apple hasn't legally named the attacker for this specific case, the forensic footprint tells a familiar story. The Google Threat Analysis Group, who helped find these bugs, has extensively documented the Mercenary spyware industry. These are private companies that develop and sell military-grade hacking tools to the government agencies. We have seen similar patterns with vendors like Intelexa, the makers of the Predator spyware. They specialize in chaining browser zero days exactly like these to silently infect phones. While we wait for the final attribution, the sophistication level here points directly to that commercial spyware ecosystem. The scope of these vulnerabilities is massive because WebKit is the core engine for almost everything Apple displays. The impact isn't limited to just one device. If you have an iPhone 11 or later, you are affected. Most modern iPads, Macs running Safari, Apple TV, Apple Watch, and even Vision Pro headsets, they all are vulnerable. And remember, the Chrome connection, the angle vulnerability, CVE-2025-14174 has a severity score of 8.8 out of 10. It crosses ecosystem boundaries, affecting Chromium-based browsers as well. This is a true cross-platform threat. So how do we spot this? For defenders and SOC teams, forensic visibility is challenging, but not impossible. Since these are 0 days exploited in the wild, specific file hashes are often kept private to protect ongoing investigation. However, watch your logs for unexpected WebKit or Safari crashes. Look for process terminations in the renderer immediately followed by network activity to unknown domains. Audit your device inventory for any hardware running iOS versions prior to 26.2. If you use those older builds in your network, assume they are exposed. So how did the industry fight back? Fast and hard. On December 12th, Apple pushed emergency updates to almost every device they make. This wasn't just about iPhones, iPads, Mac, Apple Watches, and even the Apple Vision Pro. All received patches immediately. This massive rollout confirms that the vulnerability was deep within the core of Apple's software ecosystem. And Apple wasn't working alone. Google had actually patched their Chrome browsers 2 days earlier. This timing tells us there was a coordinated disclosure happening behind the scenes. The tech giants were talking to each other, racing to fix this before it could spread further. The government stepped in immediately as well. CISA, the US Cyber Defense Agency, added both of these bugs to their known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. For federal agencies, that is a direct order. Fix this now or take the systems offline. But for the rest of us, it is a massive red flag. When CISA sets a deadline like this, they aren't guessing. They have evidence that attackers are actively using these bugs right now. The message is clear. The window of exposure is closing. And if you haven't updated yet, you are currently a target. So what does this mean for those of us defending networks? This incident reinforces a hard truth. Browser engines are the new battleground. Attackers, especially mercenary groups like Intelexa, are pouring massive resources into WebKit and Chromium. Why? Because they are the keys to the kingdom. They are present on every device. They parse untrusted content by design. And if you compromise the renderer, you are halfway to owning the device. For defenders, this means you must treat a browser update with the same urgency as you would a critical firewall breach. The days of waiting for a monthly patch cycle are over. Tactically, your biggest enemy is patch latency. In targeted attacks like these, the window of exposure is small, but the impact is devastating. If you are protecting high-risk individuals, executives, journalists, politicians, you cannot rely on user-initiated updates. And crucially, listen to the noise. Exploits are messy. They often fail before they succeed. If you see a spike in WebKit crashes or render process terminations in your logs, don't just dismiss it as a bug. That crash log could be the only smoke signal you get before the fire starts. It could be the evidence of a failed exploitation attempt on your network. So here is your final action plan. Do not wait until tomorrow. If you own an iPhone, iPad, iPad or Mac, go to settings right now and check your software update. You need to be on at least iOS 26.2, iPad OS 26.2, or Mac OS Tahoe 26.2. If you are seeing an update for version 18.7.3 on older devices, install that immediately. It contains the same crucial security fixes. For enterprise admins, your job is harder. Use your MDM to audit your fleet. Find every device running an OS version prior to 26.2 and isolate or update them. The window of exposure is still open, and with exploit details becoming public, the risk of copycat attackers is rising. These 0 days are a reminder that in the world of a targeted espionage, no platform is invulnerable. But while we can't stop the development of cyber weapons, we can certainly make them useful by patching them out of existence. Stay safe, patch your systems, and keep watching. I'm your host Pulkit Sharma, and this has been Decode the Hacks. If you like this episode, please make sure to subscribe to Decode the Hacks to learn more about such vulnerabilities and make yourself protected over the internet.